Good evening and welcome to the Vigilate Dialogues. I am your host, Shaina Smith, welcoming you to the National Boardroom where we talk about different community issues and affairs that affect our quality of life. And more importantly, we don't just complain about the problems, but we talk about the solutions. The last time we were here, we were continuing our theme of nation building, and our guest, Honorable Andrew Foy, 1st District Representative, joined us and joined in on that conversation from a political perspective. So we want to thank him for being here and sharing the information that he did. The Vigilate Dialogues is sponsored by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Therapy Works BVI, and Smith & Associates. And before we get into our next conversation, we're continuing our theme, but we're taking a different angle tonight. I just want to make a public service announcement, a PSA, in regards to some nation building that is currently going on. We've all heard about the New People's Hospital project, and we had the handover last year. So I think I would be remiss as a project manager to not mention that today we launched the donor program, where we've opened up for the community to basically make pledges towards the fit out of the hospital. So if you want more information about that, you can call either the BVI Health Services Authority or the Ministry of Health and Social Development so that everyone can make a pledge. We're taking everything from $1 to $1 million. So, you know, whether you want to get a community group together, family make donation, whatever it is, you know, it'll be greatly appreciated. And this is something that is definitely going towards our building, our society, our country as a people. Okay, so tonight, Nation Building Part 3, and we're going to be talking about renewable energy, alternative energy, and how all that ties into, you know, what we're trying to do as a country over the next 15, 25 years. And my guest tonight is no stranger to this type of conversation. So I want to welcome Mr. John Cline to the National Boardroom.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So Mr. Cline, just to give you a backdrop of the conversations that we've been having, a lot of things have been happening since the turn of the year. We had the BVI Business Outlook Forum over in Scrub Island, and we had some big names, as it were, that joined us. We had the Honorable Fabian Picardo, Chief Minister of Gibraltar, and he said that he believes that this is our century, meaning the UK overseas territories, in terms of, you know, the potential and the capacity that we have, even though we're small nations, in terms of our impact on the world stage. And we also had the Honorable Craig Cananera, the Premier of Bermuda. And he talked about the importance of, in terms of, again, building a country and doing what's right and not just what's politically right. So there were a lot of different topics out there that were discussed. We talked about tourism, smart government, education and training, how not to become roadkill in a global economy, and those different types of conversations, because the theme was taking our game to the next level, and, you know, in terms of referring again to the country. And we also heard the budget speech and the budget debate, which happened this week, where the Premier talked about empowerment of our people with the tools and opportunities to create and manage their destiny, and, you know, creating sustainable growth, which is something that's very important. What are your thoughts in terms of, you know, we have a slang that we say, how the country is running, and starting to, we're going to talk more about in terms of the economy and get into more of business development and economic growth. That was a lot, I know.
Well, I guess you said a lot and then you boiled it down to one question.
Mm-hmm.
What do I think about how the country is running? I said to someone the other day, I don't think it's as easy to run a country as people think, because if it were so, I think we would have been much further along. I believe that we have weathered many storms, but the storm has not passed fully, and I believe any government that's in power hopefully will do their best to build a nation.
Mm-hmm.
They may have varying views of how to get there, but I think the general interest is to build a nation. If I were to grade the country into where it is now, I would say a C+. Mm-hmm. I don't think that we are the country we can be. I don't think we are the country we used to be. So we have a lot of work to be done. The economy is still a bit stagnated. We still have to find a way to provide jobs for college graduates or high school students. We still have to find a way to improve our infrastructure from what we are working on right now in terms of healthcare, in terms of sewage, water, roads, schools, all of that. So there are great challenges ahead, and I understand that while all of that becomes necessary, we still have to have revenue streams going into central government to fund these programs without sending the country bankrupt. So the challenges are there, and I guess the government is doing what they can to weather the storm and to get us out of there. So overall, I will probably say a C+.
A C+.
That's what I would say.
So we have room for improvement, basically.
Oh, we have a lot of room for improvement. If I were the teacher teaching the class, that's what I would put at the end of the comments.
Okay. Extra homework.
Yeah, much room for improvement.
And I like how the statement you made actually when you prefaced and talked about, running a country is not as easy as it looks. Because a lot of times, observers look at certain things and are, question decisions that are made in terms of, well, why was this done like this and not like this, or why aren't we doing a particular thing a certain way? And, it really isn't easier. It is really not as easy as people, might judge it. But I think all things being equal, I think we need room for improvement. I would have given us a B- though.
Okay, well, I'm a hard teacher.
Apparently so.
At least you got a passing grade.
Apparently so. Yeah. So, in terms of the many hats that you wear, one of them being entrepreneur, one of our businessmen out there doing good things, great things, and we've heard a lot of conversation recently about the economy. Not recently, but I would say probably for the last 2 years, in terms of the importance of economic growth, and not just spurts, but sustainable economic growth, and how that should happen. What do you see as the priorities for the next 5 years? Just as a start, because what I think I need to mention as a sidebar is that people need to understand what we do in the next 5 years sets the stage for the next 20. Because we can't wait 20 years down the road to make decisions for then, but we need to do those now.
I think if you look at any country, its infrastructure is one of the areas where you have sustainable growth in terms of jobs. Because if you drive jobs, you will drive the economy. If you develop businesses and create opportunities for businesses to grow and expand, you do greatly improve your economic situation. Telecommunication is one of those areas where I believe that as it continue to expand in the mobile area, everybody has a laptop, or iPad, or smartphone, something, a Galaxy or something. So we see telecommunication sort of transitioning from the traditional house phone, which hardly anybody calls anymore, to these handsets, mobile phones, and all your data and all your communication. How do we position ourselves to take advantage of the growth in that area, because it's not shrinking? I think that another area, of course, is the water, water and sewage. Water has become a precious commodity throughout the world. When we could have just go to the gutter and pick up water, now everybody wants a bottled water, and when you could have gone to the restaurant and asked for a glass of water, that's slowly going away. Yeah. How do we position ourselves to not import so much water, but develop the manufacturing here, that we can produce our own water right here in the BVI, and so our own people can drink our own water, and then look for opportunities outside of the BVI. If people can import into the BVI, we can export out of the BVI. And people always have to drink water. So that area. And then we come to this whole space of energy. Very explosive, expanding market. Everyone across the globe is talking about alternative energy and ridding yourself, getting yourself off of fossil fuel and the dependency on diesel and gasoline from cars who are the electric cars to the light bulb in your house. We have to position ourselves. We have to see these global trends and not be left behind, and always be in a position where we are consumers of everything. I had a conversation just about 2 weeks ago about putting a solar water heater plant somewhere in the BVI, where we can ensure that everyone in the BVI can have a solar water heater, but we will build them right here in the country, make them available, put our young people to work, provide jobs, and also then market those to our neighboring Caribbean islands, be it St. Kitts, Antigua, that we have that kind of stuff going on. And there's so many other things within that space, within the solar space, within the wind space. We have just about everything we need here to compete and make ourselves efficient in those areas. So it is those areas, I believe, along with the things we have been doing already with, financial services and those things, that I believe will sustain our economy, cause us to grow with the global trend, and make us producers and not only consumers.
Awesome. You said a lot. Well, one thing I want to highlight in terms, so you're saying basically, because I know this is something that has been spoken about in terms of whether or not we can industries here, and you're saying that you see it as being viable. It's something that we can do.
Absolutely, because the one of the plants I visited was located in Jacksonville, and if they can build it there, we can build it here, because their labor cost is much higher than ours. When we had $4 an hour minimum wage, which probably should be raised, they are right now at $8 and flirting with $10. But their people are working and they're building affordable systems, water heater systems, that are being distributed here and in the Caribbean. One of their largest markets is Jamaica, that they sell this product to, and people are buying them. So why can't we set up such a thing here and also sell into Jamaica? I'm sure we can build it cheaper once we do the investment in the infrastructure. And those kind of things, people always used to say we can't manufacture here because our labor cost is too high. But that's where government comes in. That's where you get incentives from government to develop manufacturing, to take advantage of some of the global trend in terms of manufacturing. Everything doesn't have to be made in China to be cheap.
Yeah, that's a good thing, that we could get some products out there that have no meat in the Virgin Islands on the bottom of it.
Absolutely.
That was great. So in terms of diversifying the economy, you also hinted at that in terms of, we're not saying move away from financial services or tourism, but looking at how we can broaden the economic base that we have as a country, because at the end of the day, financial services cannot employ everybody, or tourism in terms of the industries, the jobs that are created within the industry, but we have to look at new jobs creations in that regard. What do you see, and we're going to touch on the other hat that you wear at times, the chairman of the Health Services Authority. Well, one of the discussions that was at the conference was about medical tourism and the potential or prospect that is there for us to tap into. What are your thoughts on that?
I was privileged as chairman to travel with a delegation from the Ministry of Health in terms of exploring this whole idea of medical tourism. I was quite impressed, surprised, encouraged, excited all at the same time to see that there is this new industry that's being developed, that the BVI, actually Dr. Tattersall pioneered for years, he was truly way ahead of his time when people used to come here for cosmetic type surgery. And now is a $150 billion business with a potential of 200 billion. And I see, as the minister stated, and if we can get 0.5% of that, of 100 billion, you're talking somewhere in the neighborhood, if 1% of 100 billion is 10 billion. So if we can get half of that,
Yeah.
just $500 million dollars circulating to our economy. It's not money that will come straight into the government, but it's monies that will generate revenue for government through the various services and taxes that can be had from it. So I believe that if the BVI is looking for, if the government is looking for a third strong economic pillar going forward, I believe that it's a good direction to look into. It's a very fragile market. It's a very competitive market because the leaders like Mexico and Costa Rica and those places, they have what we have. They have sun, they have sea, they have sand, they have all of that. The thing that will make the difference is service.
Okay.
So anytime you talk about sand, sea, and sun, you are in a tight competition.
Just like with regular tourism.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that makes the difference is the service. So if you're going to talk about those 4 S's, our focus that will make us or break us is the service. We provide around medical tourism that will make people want to come to the BVI to find get medical attention, whether it be cosmetic or some other not heavily non-invasive type of treatment.
Like physical therapy.
Physical therapy, and you also have a component of medical tourism that deals with wellness. We already have tremendous environment, I believe natural resource in Anegada, Virgin Gorda, where you can build a wellness center where people can come to rejuvenate, where people can come in the tranquility of these islands and just be rejuvenated, come back to health. If you develop a wellness center, I think it's tremendous opportunity for us, and not just look to sell, a sail on a yacht, but other things.
Interesting. And I know for people who have been hearing about, again, the conversation that has begun around medical tourism and what exactly the potential is, because just today we were talking after the presentation, and it was like in terms of helping people to understand, before we were building the hospital for ourselves, but now, we have to have a broader scope in terms of saying, what about regionally? So even with persons coming from St. Kitts, Antigua, in the other Leeward Islands, or even all the way, as far along as we can go, in terms of coming here to the BVI for services that would be more economical for them to receive through the healthcare system that we have here.
Absolutely. You first build a healthcare system for your people because it's a matter of national security to have good health for your people and to monitor sickness and disease and monitor the spread of all of that and minimize the impact on the country's viability and health and so on and so forth. But because of the way healthcare is going and the cost that's expanding so rapidly, you have to build it for more than you. That's why we go to the U.S. and don't ever fool ourselves. We fuel many economies around us. In Puerto Rico, in St. Thomas, we fuel the economy. Every time we get on a boat, every time we get on that plane and go to their hospitals and pay them $1,500, $800, $3,000 for medical care, we are fueling the economy, and they welcome us. As a matter of fact, they're trying to find ways where they can get more of us to come. And we have to be the kind of thinkers, we have to be the kind of people in the BVI who are not just running to somebody else, but when are we going to build a country where people run to us because our service is good, our care is good, our our prices are good, and we are just offering just the best service that are the desires of many. So at health services, we speak about centers of excellence. Where do we focus? Where do we think we will get the best bang for buck as we develop this system and build our centers of excellence, that people from around the Caribbean and the Americas can come and say, you have to go to the BVI because they offer this particular
A specialty.
specialty.
Okay.
So it's that kind of thinking you have going on right now.
Good. All right, well, we're going to take a break and get a word from our sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to continue to talk about nation building and how we do so through our economy and for a more stable future for the country. So we'll be right back after this commercial break. Good evening and welcome to the Vigilate Dialogues. I am your host, Shaina Smith. And this evening, our conversation is continuing along the theme of nation building. And we've been talking about economic development and the importance of having a strong private sector. And that's one of the things we're going to start talking about and enter into some other prospects, because based on what we've been talking about so far, Bishop Cline, in terms of the economic opportunities, because we hear people complain a lot about not, they don't see the opportunities. And it's something where I always say opportunity is where you find it. As long as you know what's out there, especially on a global or regional level in terms of trends. So you mentioned about telecommunications as something that we need to start paying closer attention to and maximizing on the potential that's there. In addition to manufacturing on the renewable energy and some other opportunities that may present itself. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But before we do that, because that'll take us into a completely other show, I just wanted to ask a question to get your thought in terms of when it comes to building the economy, whose job is it? Is it government? Is it private sector? Is it both? Is it neither? Is it the foreign investor? Whose job is it?
I think, in my opinion, government leads the way. You have to have leadership that, I believe, lay a foundation, blaze some of the trails in terms of creating the environment where investors, both local and foreign, can feel comfortable in doing business in the BVI.
Okay.
So first and foremost, the government has to be involved. However, I don't believe that government is the one and the only one that is responsible for expanding economy. There is a private sector that we as business people, we employ a great amount of people, especially the local businesses. I have a small business, but if you speak about population-wise, with me having about 24 employees, if I were in America and I would do the ratio, I would have a pretty large company. So in the BVI, that's a pretty big company. And to help me to grow and to help me to expand, I must have incentives from government, whether it be tax incentives and other type of incentives in order to help me to expand my business. I can't give myself those. And in turn, it strengthens my position. It makes me more attractive to those who will go overseas. And I must be willing to pass on whatever incentives or savings, put that back into the economy so that it can grow, so I can expand, so I can create jobs for college or high school students and so on, or anybody.
Yeah.
So, I think it's a hand-in-hand thing, private and public partnership that has to happen in terms of growing the economy.
And I think that's important, because sometimes I find that's missing from the conversations that you hear a lot, where it's for government to go out and do, or at least the perception is that for government to go out and do. But it's not government's role to go and start a business in renewable energy.
Right.
Government might make a decision and we get concessions, let's say duty concessions, in terms of bringing them in into the country, or even with the manufacturing idea that you mentioned, as far as, you know, maybe give a tax break to the company for the first 5 years, you know, giving it an opportunity to become profitable,
Yes.
and then it would fulfill its obligation as any other business should. And looking at that, in terms of foreign investment, do you think it's something that we have come to over rely on, or, you know, it has its place, but where is it?
I think it's necessary in any country to have foreign investment. I don't think we can do it by ourselves. There are some things that we can provide, and what we can provide, we should be allowed to provide, and we should be encouraged to provide. But we do not have all of the money to do all of the things that I believe will be good in the BVI. In cases like that, we welcome foreign investment, and we ought to make the BVI a friendly place for foreign investors, and not just think everybody's coming to
Take over.
take over. I think we, to a large degree in the BVI, because of lack of knowledge, my people are destroyed, the Bible says. We suffer from xenophobia that, you know, everybody is coming, we have to be afraid of. I believe our laws, labor laws, I believe our company laws can regulate. I believe our environmental laws can, you know, pretty much determine how developers develop, where they develop, and our labor laws can protect those who will be working in these establishments. So I don't think we should be afraid of foreign investment at all.
So it's more along the lines of how we negotiate
Yes.
the deals, and as well as looking at, again, government's role as a regulator,
Yes.
setting those
So,
frameworks in place.
Yeah, I welcome foreign investment, because America would not be the country it is today if it wasn't for foreign investment. Singapore definitely will not be the country it is today other than foreign investment. They open their doors and say, come in. But you can't just come in and do what you want. You can't just come in and act as you please. And that's where our government will help to protect our land and our nation, so that the people feel safe and they know that jobs are being created, opportunities are being created, without they feel they're going to lose everything.
That's key. I'm going to do a show about that one of these days. Okay, so diversification of the economy. For me, this is a big thing for us over the next 20 years. If we're going to stay sustainably developed in that regard. And just an aside, I forgot to mention this, when you talked about medical tourism, and we're looking for 0.5%. Just to give people kind of a perspective, where our GDP, or gross domestic product, which is like a measure of how much money is in the country, it's usually between $800 to $900 million. So if we are able to capture $500 million, we are effectively increasing that by 50% right off the bat. So it's no small token, and that means there are a lot of business opportunities now, because then everything is not going to just be dealing with the hospital, but then there are a lot of support services that go along with medical tourism. So we can't get into all of it tonight, but we encourage you to Google it and educate yourself, because especially for young entrepreneurs, this is the opportunity or avenue where you can start to look at your business idea in terms of how you can get into medical tourism if you're interested in hospitality, but had never thought about, you know, this niche as it is, apart from saying hotel ownership or restaurant or the traditional tourism products and services that we offer, that this is something different that we can get into.
Let me say something about medical tourism. Medical tourism, again, does not have to be hospital-centric. There are other medical facilities in the BVI, and they can also develop their own centers of excellence. Before anyone was doing cosmetic surgery, and Bougainvillea was doing it, that was a center of excellence. I remember being somewhere in Florida and mentioning Bougainvillea, and they said, oh, that's in the BVI or something like that.
They knew of it.
They knew of it, and that wasn't a hospital service. So other medical institutions must develop and be able to position themselves to take advantage as the groundwork is laid, as government, ensure that, immigration is right, that people will come in and get out, that travel arrangement is being made, and all of the stuff that goes around is a whole dynamic that goes on with it, that they are also positioned to take advantage of it.
Yeah, very key. So do your research. Okay, another potential secondary industry, because we talk about primary industries. And when we talk about secondary industry, alternative energy is a big conversation topic these days. So big that we had a meeting on Necker Island, I believe it was last week, Friday, in the carbon war room of all things. And we had quite a bit of, let's see what they had here. The summit was held in the British Virgin Islands, was attended by representatives of 12 countries, which includes the BVI, as well as CEOs and executives from over 30 corporations and institutions, including Philips, Johnson Controls, Songevity, Vestas, NRG, CARICOM, the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, and the World Bank. So this was no small gathering by any means in terms of the discussion around where the Caribbean is in terms of renewable energy. And I didn't realize there was so many people until I went and looked for the press release around it. And I was very surprised in terms of the level of the discussion. Because a lot of times, we hear about these summits and these conferences and it's a lot of talk. But apparently these guys are about serious business in terms of getting alternative energy out there and what can be done in terms of, not just in terms of cost savings, but a whole lot of other things. Give us a little synopsis of the industry. One of the things, the interesting factoids that I found online where they were talking about that we used here in the BVI in 2010, we imported over 11 million gallons of fuel, costing approximately $30 million to supply our energy needs. Now, I could do a lot of things with that $30 million in terms of nation building.
Well,
so rather than spending on what we're going to say, gas, but it obviously went into whether it's vehicles or production of electricity, but it's major.
You can never blame business people. Think business. And don't forever 1 minute think that the invitation by Mr. Bronson and whoever it was over there is just to provide alternative energy. There's a reason why it's called the Carbon Room.
The Carbon War Room.
Carbon War Room. Because you have somebody like the World Bank at the table, and I don't even know if the people in the room understand what's going on. There are people around the world now floating hundreds of millions of dollars. I got a call sometime in August saying that there's $500 million available if your country is willing to install solar energy and reduce the carbon footprint. That's the key thing. In reducing the carbon footprint that investor will put up the money to do, he gets what is called carbon credits. Carbon credits are then sold on the open market for a lot of money.
Okay.
So it's not just a matter of providing alternative energy. It's doing it for a reason. The country benefits, yes. But the investors also benefit greatly because they can take that carbon credit now and sell it to countries who have not been able to meet their requirements for reducing carbon credit and sell the carbon credits to them, even though the carbon footprint was reduced in another country.
Okay.
And it's sold for hundreds of millions of dollars.
So this is creating basically like a stock exchange.
Oh, absolutely. It is already created. It's not something.
So it's already in existence.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
People with money are putting up their money to provide countries in the Caribbean and in Africa to install these things so that they can reduce carbon footprint and get the carbon credit the carbon credits to sell on the open market for a high price.
Wow. Okay.
So it's not just, it might sound, oh, that's wonderful, but the government has to educate itself in terms of, if they're going to do this, yes, this is what we get. What are they getting, and what percentage of what they're getting should come back into the country?
Yeah, because
I'm
that's,
not saying
that's
they
like royalties.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds like royalties.
Absolutely.
That's a whole other show.
So let's not get too excited too quick without doing the homework and the reasons behind this great initiative to get into areas like this where we still have virgin territory for reducing carbon footprint. Because when they do it, and that's why if you just take the BVI by itself, that's not much. So invite the people from around the Caribbean. If I can get the whole region and reduce the carbon footprint and get the carbon credit for that, guess what? He's 10 times as rich as he was when he started.
Yeah. So the investment that was made in terms of energy efficiency, it pays itself back.
Pays for itself in no time. And you own that forever. It's not like you can go back and take it back.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
It's already sold.
So it's a currency. It becomes a currency.
Yeah, it's absolutely a currency.
Currency.
Yep.
Interesting.
So, I don't know what you wanted to ask me about that. I was itching to say that.
I sound so. You can completely throw us off on the side. Anyway, back to the. Well, no, not really. No, you didn't throw us off, because one of the questions was in terms of the industry trends. So that's part of the industry trend that we see in terms of the push now. Yes. Because that was one of the things that was mentioned in the press release in terms of the funding now that's available for various projects. Whether it's in electricity, private sector development, looking at hotels, schools. They mentioned here they have 300+ million in funding to support the projects above with clarified pathway to access in terms of all the different things that they want to do.
And this is what I'm saying. You hear the number.
Yeah.
Without even knowing that number, 300 million, I said 500 million. Because the call that I got, I was in Orlando. I got a call from New Jersey saying, we have these investors who are willing, but they're not looking for small projects, because small projects will not help them meet their objectives. They're not looking to install a solar panel on a house or 250 kilowatt. They're looking for megawatt installations around the Caribbean that will meet that objective. Now, collectively, if you do some in BVI, if you do some in St. Thomas, if you do some in Antigua, it adds up. And for the region, then you can sell that carbon credit. So while, like I said, we can't do everything because we don't have the money to do everything, but we must also be wise as we proceed and understand what's behind it. Okay. The World Bank doesn't sit at a table just to sit at a table.
Very true.
There's something in it.
Very true. Very true.
For them.
Well, here's another interesting trend that I don't know how many people know also about this. That was this in the UN, I think it was, where there was a mandate that went out in terms of phasing out incandescent bulbs, as far as actually stopping the manufacturing of them, so that basically when they're done, they're done. And in Brazil and Venezuela, they started their phase out in 2005. The European Union, Switzerland, and Australia started to phase them out in 2009. Likewise, other nations are implementing new energy standards or have scheduled phase outs. Argentina and Russia in 2012, so that was last year. And not last year, it was 2 years ago. And the United States, Canada, Malaysia, and South Korea in 2014. So then the question becomes, what are we going to use if we don't use incandescent bulbs? Because that's basically where most of our lighting energy that we've known, all these millions of years has come from. So what are the other options now out there as far as renewable energy?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I brought some examples because I know the question would come up. And for the viewers, this is a traditional bulb that we know. This is an incandescent bulb. This is a 40-watt bulb I hold in my hand. And at 43 cents per kilowatt hour, that's what we pay in the BVI average, well, at the top of the chain for electricity. This can cost you probably about $300 a year to
For one
run
bulb?
for one bulb.
Wow.
So this is what they're getting rid of, the traditional bulbs. So all of those stores that have incandescent bulbs and so on, after a while, they won't see them.
Yeah. And that's important to know because I might go looking for bulbs and want to know what happened.
Right.
Okay.
The next thing they came up with, knowing that that was coming, was what they call CLFs, CFLs, compact fluorescence lights.
Okay.
And this is the one that has gone viral around the world for the last 3 or 4 years since the phase out started in 2005. And this bulb can
pull it this way so we can
this
see it.
way.
There you go. Yeah.
This bulb can actually is consumed 3 times less
Okay.
than this bulb, the incandescent bulb. So does it save you money? Definitely.
Okay.
The only problem with this bulb is it is not environmentally friendly
Okay.
because it has mercury in it, and once it goes into the landfill and the mercury goes into the ground and then leaks into the water,
Yeah.
and then you have contaminated water that you're drinking water, it goes into the sea, and you don't know why your fish are dying, you don't know why you're getting sick. So this is one of the major problems with this bulb.
Okay.
According, it does save money. It doesn't have a good light as good as the incandescent that's being phased out, but it does save money. We can't say it doesn't.
Okay.
The future, however, is this. And this bulb is an LED bulb.
Okay.
LED has been around for a long time. All of those little digital 8s and things that make up your digital clock,
calculators and all those.
all
types
of that
things,
has
yeah.
been LED for the longest time, which means light emitting diode. That's what LED means. It's a diode. And it has electronics that drives the light and cause it to light. Now, this light will consume about half of what this will consume.
Okay. So we're half of a third now.
We are half of a third. So if you compare it to the incandescent bulb, this light will consume about 5 times less than this bulb will consume. And this is the future. And this is where, if you start talking about solar, and alternative energies, you want to become energy efficient at home or in any business before you have to go buy a whole bunch of solar panels to power inefficiency.
Okay.
And that's why if we go into anybody's house to put in solar, the first thing we look at is what do you have in your house? What kind of lights do you have? What kind of bulbs? You have to get rid of those, or it's going to cost you too much to power with the solar panels. You're going to be buying a lot of solar panels. So LED bulbs right now are a bit more expensive than the cost is actually almost going with the consumption, right?
Yeah.
They are about 3 to 5 times more expensive than either the incandescent or the compact fluorescence. However, they last about 3 times as long.
Okay.
So you don't have to change them as often. Most people who are reputable suppliers, such as Atlantis Solar, which is my company, we give a 3-year warranty on all of our bulbs because that's what our manufacturer gives us. So we guarantee you if you buy a bulb, you don't have to change it in 3 years. If it blows, then you can come to us and bring it back and change it.
Okay.
In terms of businesses that they have to call in an electrician to change lights and so on because they're not getting up on a ladder, it also saves them in labor costs. That it's not often you have to call in that. It also, this bulb does not get as hot
Okay.
as either of these bulbs. So your house is cooler, or it's an office, the office is cooler. So if you have AC,
Yeah.
you don't have to heat up your room with the bulb and then pump up your AC to cool it back down.
Okay.
So it's a win-win situation all around. And this is where the GE, the Sylvania, the Philips, all of those major manufacturers of the world are going. When the Chinese came up with this, everybody was just, looking at it funny. But then they realized that these people are onto something.
It's a new trend.
It's a new trend, and it works, and it's a great light. This particular bulb, like I said, is a 40-watt bulb. This bulb is a 5-watt bulb. This one is 8 watts, I mean. It's an 8-watt bulb. So you are going to be consuming 5 times less energy with this bulb than this bulb, producing less heat. And
same illumination?
Same illumination, or even better, actually. Okay. Definitely better than this.
Okay.
Definitely
I find the CFL to be really dim.
It's a poor light.
Yeah.
It's a very poor light to use gas and mercury to power the light. It has to warm up. So when we start talking about how does this benefit the whole energy initiative, it benefits first the consumer, that you can reduce your electric costs because we know it's high in the BVI. In St. Thomas, where this is taken off, they are paying 54 cents per kilowatt hour. We are paying about 43 cents. They're paying about 11 cents more than we are.
Plus we have the surcharge. That's factored into?
That's factored in.
Okay.
That's what takes it up there.
Okay.
Without the surcharge, you're only down at about maybe 30 cents actually.
So that's the next petition. I'm going to petition against this surcharge.
We need to do something about that. So recognizing that trend is why I decided to get into the business, the solar space, the whole energy alternative space, because I see it as a development, an area of development, an area of business and expanding and creating jobs in the BVI. I don't just want to go out and buy bulbs from people to put in my house. I want to be able to create a business locally that can employ salespeople, technicians. I call electricians all the time. Listen, I have a job. I don't have an electrician on staff. So what I do is I call an electrician and I say, I need for you to go to company X. They have about 20 tubes to replace with LED tubes. Can you do that? You can either bill me or you can bill the company. All of those things keep the economy running, keep business growing. Right now, I probably have 2 electricians that I call. One main one, and if he's ever busy, I can also call another. And, it's a win-win situation all around. If we can create opportunities for trade, high school people can come out and the electrician, they can go into that business. And it's developing, and there's so much there around that. And then, of course, the solar pieces. We can do anything from solar water heaters to solar lights. All of the lights on Mans Road, those solar LED lights.
The street lights.
The street lights were provided by my company.
Okay.
And
so those are solar powered with LED bulbs.
Solar powered with LED bulbs.
Good.
And I think anybody who sees them will know it's a great light. It lights the street very well.
Yeah, I like to see some of those on the West End Road.
And and yeah, those were the first ones. So you need to phase those out. And no wire, just the sun. And once they pay for themselves, they're paid. We also provide whole house systems. As the legislation, hopefully you'll talk about that a little bit. And this is where government comes in to make the legislation easy so that
allows for
alternative energy system and homes to grid tie. It's nothing new.
Yeah.
And I believe that they're working now feverishly to get it done.
Yeah.
First, they were making it look like it was such a monumental task. It's nothing new. I've been to Italy. I've been all over the place, and
Yeah.
it's what they do.
Yeah. And grid tie, so we like explain to persons is that basically if you have let's say you have a solar generation system on your house and you produce more than you need, you actually send that back over the grid, the main grid, and you'd receive a credit on your bill because now you've contributed to the electrical supply.
Yes.
So that's
In
a win-win in terms of we only have so many space to put on more generators. Right. So that helps now. You know, my power might end up all the way in East End because somebody needs it.
Yeah, and some people think they send the electricity company out of business. It's such
no.
people who are just don't know what they're talk this nonsense. Because as the population grow, there'll be more need and more demand for power. Do you buy more engines? Do you keep buying 30 million, 40 million barrels of oil per year?
And that's another thing that we didn't mention, because I think, I'm not too sure the year, but we've already peaked in terms of fossil fuel, if I remember the research correctly. So it's going to soon become one of those scarce commodities that we can't afford to be bringing in, what was it? 11 million gallons, because it won't cost 30 million. It'll probably be twice the cost, if not more. Because as fossil fuel runs out, then it's basically going to drive up the cost of it. And we do have to look at an alternative that is viable, that we can live off of for the next 100 or however many thousand years the world will last. So that's also another important trend I think we need to be aware of.
So throughout the world, you see these push towards alternative energy. In the U.S., not only solar, but natural gas is a big push because they claim that they have such a reservoir of natural gas. We heard some talk about ethanol and using corn, and all of these things are being developed around the world. And in the BVI, we can't not be, 10 and 20 years. We can't afford that in a global economy. And I think that's what the Bermuda Prime Minister was speaking about. Let us not become roadkill in this global economy. And then this, because sometimes as BVI Islanders, sorry to say, we think, we are...
It's not going to happen here.
Such, we have it all together.
Yeah.
But if we don't keep our thinking sharp and keep abreast of what's going on in the global market, before you know it, we are back in a third world mentality. And we have to be very careful. We have to be on the cutting edge of our thinking, of our leadership, of our technology, if we're going to remain competitive. Because people who are looking for business are not going to go to countries where the power is always going out, where there's so many inefficiencies in water, and the infrastructure is a mess. And you don't want that. And as BVI Islanders, we cannot provide all the business and jobs needed for our people. So we have to make the environment friendly to business, both local and foreign.
And that's very key. We're out of time. Already? So I told you this ain't going to be 2 shows easily. So we're going to definitely pick this up. But in terms of closing, what would be some of the things that, whether for consumers, for businesses, for the country as a whole, that we need to be thinking about in the space of renewable energy, alternative energy, what we can be doing to make ourselves more efficient, where we need to go?
I would say for homes, especially residential, your lights, your water heater, we've seen that commercial put on by BVI EC. But people are very slow, so they keep paying these high electric bill and keep complaining about it. Well, do something. Do something about it. And a plug for Atlantis Solar and Lighting. Our offices in our stores in Fish Bay. You can come there right in the same building of DHL. You can get all the information there, or you can even stop by Infinite Solutions, where I am a lot of the times, and I can give you whatever information you need and how to acquire the bulbs, how to acquire the bulbs. We can do energy audits, because one of the things that we haven't spoken about in terms of residential, if your refrigerator is older than 2005,
it's inefficient.
It's inefficient. You need to get rid of it. It's costing you money to own. And you need to get rid of it. You might say, you can't afford to get rid of it, but you can't afford to keep paying these high electric bills either. Those are some of the things we do with homes. We do energy audits that we can have somebody come in and tell you if your refrigerator or your lights or whatever it is that's drawing the power that makes your electric bill go high. We can do that. We do it for businesses. We do it for residents.
Actually, that's my fridge. Okay, I gotta get that sorted out.
So, boy.
I just do the calculation in my head. I'm like, wait a minute. I moved home in 2003. Did he say 2005? Okay.
Yeah. And in terms of businesses, that a penny saved is a penny earned. If businesses can look for a way to reduce their energy costs, I did it in my space in Infinite Solutions. Everything that I could at the time, I replaced to LED. And so those are some of the quick wins you can do.
Okay. And especially too, if you're going to build a house,
if you're definitely
make sure that you're thinking energy efficiency.
Definitely don't go with incandescent. Don't let your electrician,
your architect and your electrician.
Do not let your electrician come and bring in no compact fluorescence and especially incandescent bulbs into your house at this point.
Yeah.
It's only going to cost you money in the long run. In terms of government, what they can do, one, they can pass a legislation that makes it easier for companies and residents to grid tie. Two, they can ease some of the import
the duty
concessions coming in. I had a shipment come in. I just landed in St. Thomas. That's what I did, because all the products that I bring in is not for the BVI. And I can't bring it in and pay 21% and then ship it back out and sell it to anybody else. There are places throughout in the Caribbean and in America that's giving you concession, tax breaks for energy efficiency. America right now is encouraging manufacturers to build solar plants in the U.S. instead of China because they're losing jobs. So how do we get you back home? Here are the incentives. They're giving rebates to people who would change out their incandescent bulb to a more energy efficient bulb. So you can go in and you'll see this big rebate on it. So a $9.99 bulb in America is not always $9.99 without the rebate. You know, you have to send that in. It has to be certified and so on and so forth. And then you get the credit. These are little things that our government can do. And sometimes I really think that they're just sleeping on this stuff.
Missed opportunity.
And and to help our people to move forward quickly. Because if I have to pay 21% on a bulb and pass that along to the consumer, then obviously they're going to be more shy in paying this high price for a bulb, where if you can give me the 21% off and I can pass it along to the consumer, then all I have is my markup, right? And I don't think there's any honest business honest business people who are going to take the 21% and still try to make a killing. You pass it along to the consumer. So I think as businesses, as residents, as government, all of us have our part to play in ensuring that we become a more energy efficient country. I am not saying that the government should not entertain the foreign ideas from the carbon war room and all of that, but they need to understand this whole idea of carbon credits and what that means, and if you give it up, what does it mean, and is there a place in there for you to get royalties from the credit that you will have given up in the future. So those are some of the discussions we need to have, I believe.
Interesting. And we're going to have to continue this because we're completely out of time now. So I want to thank you for being here and sharing, all this information with us in terms of, again, you know, nation building isn't just one aspect. A lot of times we hear the talk around it, but it needs to understand it's, you know, it's a lot of different facets, and it's very complex, not complicated, but there's so many different facets to it that, you know, the average person should make themselves knowledgeable in, so that they can make, you know, better decisions about where they're positioning themselves.
Yes.
For the new BVI. So thank our guests again, our sponsors, National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Therapy Works BVI, and Smith & Associates. And as always, thank you for being tuned in to the dialogues. I'll see you again Thursdays at 8 and Sundays we re-air at 6 p.m. Have a good evening.